Before the orchestra struck its first note and before the cameras caught a single smile, a powerful CEO stood alone in a marble dressing room, tears dropping onto a torn silk gown, while a quiet single dad held a pair of scissors, ready to change both their lives. If you believe small acts can rewrite destinies, stay with me till the end, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for stories that touch the heart and remind us who we really are. The night of the annual Horizon Gala was supposed to be flawless. Invitations had been embossed in gold, the guest list curated with precision, and the city buzzed with anticipation. Eleanor Whitmore, CEO of a global fashion and technology conglomerate, had faced market crashes, hostile takeovers, and public scrutiny without blinking. Yet here she was, staring at a mirror, her reflection fractured by panic. The custom-made gown, months in design, millions in symbolism, was torn clean along the side seam. A careless snag, a sharp edge on a hanger, and suddenly the armor she wore to the world felt useless. She pressed her hand over the tear, breathing shallowly, the weight of expectations crashing down. Tonight wasn't just a gala, it was a statement, a fundraiser, a moment to reassure investors and inspire employees. And she was unraveling. Outside the dressing room, the corridor hummed with urgency. Assistants whispered, stylists argued, security paced. No one had a solution. No replacement gown could arrive in time. No miracle thread could erase the damage. Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Tears came fast, uninvited, sliding over years of discipline. She whispered, almost ashamed, I can't go out like this. The door opened quietly, and a man stepped in, not a stylist, not an executive, but Daniel Reyes, the building's facilities manager, holding a toolkit and a folded note. He was there because a light had flickered in the West Wing. He stayed because he heard someone crying. Daniel was the kind of man people rarely noticed. A single father to a 7-year-old daughter named Maya, he had learned to move through the world gently, efficiently, without fuss. Since his wife passed away 3 years earlier, he'd stitched together a life of early mornings, packed lunches, and bedtime stories, doing everything twice as carefully because there was no one to catch what he dropped. Sewing was something his mother had taught him when he was young, back when they couldn't afford new clothes and learned to mend what they had. He saw the torn gown and didn't see a disaster. He saw fabric, tension, possibility. I'm sorry to interrupt, Daniel said, voice steady, eyes respectful. I might be able to help. Eleanor looked at him, incredulous, mascara smudged, pride wounded. Help how? She asked, already bracing for disappointment. Daniel set his toolkit down and pulled out a small pair of scissors and a compact sewing kit. If you're open to it, he said, sometimes you don't fix a tear by hiding it. Sometimes you transform it. Time pressed in. The orchestra tuned. The doors to the ballroom were minutes from opening. Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. What did she have to lose? Daniel asked for space and permission. He studied the gown like a map, fingers tracing lines, eyes calculating. With calm precision, he cut, not recklessly, but deliberately, reworking the torn seam into an elegant asymmetry. He reinforced the structure, added a subtle drape, and secured it with hidden stitches that held firm without shouting their presence. The scissors whispered, the needle danced, and something extraordinary happened in that quiet room. Eleanor stopped crying. She watched. She breathed. She remembered what it felt like to trust. When Daniel stepped back, the gown looked intentional. Bold, alive. The tear had become a statement. Eleanor met her reflection again and saw not a woman exposed, but a woman transformed. It's beautiful, she said, voice catching for a different reason now. Daniel smiled softly. You're the one wearing it, he replied. A stage manager knocked. 2 minutes. Eleanor turned to Daniel, gratitude shining. Thank you, she said, meaning more than the gown. Please, stay. I want you in the audience. He shook his head. I've got a light to fix, he said, already packing up. Eleanor walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The asymmetrical gown drew murmurs, then admiration. She spoke not from a script, but from the moment. She talked about resilience, about the beauty of adaptation, about how the strongest designs allow room for change. The room leaned in. Donations surged. The gala exceeded every expectation. But Eleanor's mind kept returning to the quiet man with the scissors, to the way he'd solved a problem without needing recognition. Days later, Eleanor asked to find Daniel. When they met, it wasn't in a boardroom but in the building's cafeteria. She learned about Maya, about mornings that began before dawn, about a life stitched together with care. She listened, and then she made an offer, not charity, not a handout, but opportunity. She invited Daniel to consult on a new initiative, a community skills program that valued practical knowledge alongside formal credentials. Sewing, repair, craftsmanship, skills often dismissed, now recognized as innovation's backbone. Daniel hesitated, worried about time, about Maya. Eleanor didn't rush him. She adjusted the role, the hours, the support. Transformation, she had learned, required flexibility. The program launched quietly and grew quickly. People came with stories and left with confidence. Daniel taught and learned in equal measure. Maya visited after school, watching her father light up in ways she hadn't seen since before her mother died. Eleanor attended sessions, sometimes sitting in the back, sometimes threading a needle, remembering the night she'd nearly broken. The media eventually noticed. Headlines praised visionary leadership. Eleanor redirected the praise. "This," she said, "is what happens when we see each other." At the next gala, Eleanor wore a gown inspired by that first transformation, designed to evolve, to be reconfigured, to tell a story of resilience. She invited Daniel and Maya as guests of honor. When Maya tugged Eleanor's hand and whispered, "My dad fixes things," Eleanor knelt to her level and said, "So do you." Every day, the orchestra played, the lights held steady. Somewhere, a pair of scissors rested, ready for the next quiet miracle. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that help can come from unexpected hands and that even the strongest among us sometimes need saving, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us share more stories that heal, inspire, and remind us that a small act, done with care, can change everything.